Hi, class.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I've been going to all the 5th grade classrooms on campus, and we're going to be talking about ability awareness. We will be talking mostly about people with disabilities, but I like to call it ability awareness because it helps emphasize that everyone, whether you have a disability or not, has abilities that we need to recognize and appreciate. So let's talk about what a disability is. A disability is a physical or mental condition that limits someone's ability to move, to sense, or to do things. These things can happen at birth, in childhood, and in adulthood. Across your life, it can happen because of an accident, or it might be because of genetics, or it might be because you get a disease, or you might be exposed to something toxic that changes how your brain works. Do you guys know of anyone with a disability?
Yes.
Yeah?
I do.
Can you tell me a couple disabilities you know of?
My grandma had to be in the wheelchair because her legs stopped working because she
Okay.
had arthritis on her spine.
Okay, so thank you for sharing. That's an example of a physical disability. So that's one of the types of disabilities that our government recognizes and provides protection for people. Do you know of a person in your family with a
I know.
disability?
I have a friend who has Down syndrome.
Okay, so you have someone who has Down syndrome, which is a little bit of a learning disability as well as can impact speech and language or medical areas. So some of the other types of disabilities would be brain injuries that could happen because of accidents, being blind, being deaf or not being able to hear, psychiatric disabilities, so things that influence someone's emotional state or is in their brain that prevents them from interacting with others and doing things in the way they want to do them. So let's talk about how common disability is, because I think that we might think that it's not that common. But the reality is it's really prevalent, which means it's all over the place. So individuals with disabilities are the largest minority group in the United States. In fact, in 2013 and 2014, 13% of all public school students had special education services, which means their disability made it harder for them to learn things. So we needed to provide them with extra support. Another interesting thing to note is that how much of people have disabilities and at what age they have those disabilities. So let's do a little bit of math. So in 2013, 51.9% of people with disabilities were ages 18 to 64. Let's round that up. What do we have when we round that up?
52%.
52. And then we've got 40.3 for 65 and older, which if we round that down, that's 40. So 52 plus 40 is
92.
So 92% of all of the people in the United States with disabilities are ages 18 and older, up until elderly people, which is the biggest chunk of that pie. So what this tells us, and only 7% are ages 5 to 17, which is in your guys' age range. So what this tells us is that disabilities increase with age, which means every single one of us in this room at some point might have a disability as we get older. So knowing that, we want to make sure that we treat other people the way that we want to be treated. So talking about how people are being treated with disabilities, unfortunately, a lot of people with disabilities are bullied. It's important to note that people with disabilities or children with disabilities are bullied 2 to 3 more times than other students. So one of the things you also need to think about is that bullying based off of a student's disability is considered harassment, and it's also illegal. The government has identified that bullying may also be considered harassment when it's based on a student's race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or religion. And there are federal laws that we have in place that protect individuals with disabilities. So you need to think about bullying a person with disability not just as a wrong thing to do, but it's actually also illegal. So children in schools have certain attitudes towards people with disabilities, and unfortunately, they're not always positive. So that's why I'm here to talk to you guys. A lot of children in schools today think negatively about people with disabilities, regardless of what type of disability it is, whether it's someone who's in a wheelchair or someone who has Down syndrome. And unfortunately, being in a classroom with their peers, with you guys, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to feel accepted or valued. How many of you have a person in your classroom that has a disability?
I had one in kindergarten.
Okay. So if that person isn't being spoken to, if they're not sitting at the carpet during circle time with everyone else, if the teacher doesn't call on them, they're not being included in that classroom. And that can make them feel unwanted. So let's talk about this picture really quickly. What sticker does he have on his head?
Disabled.
Disabled. So a lot of times when we see someone with a disability, that's how we think of them, is they are disabled. But you'll see there are lots of labels on other things, like peaches, olives, tomatoes. What are these things right here?
Food.
Food. And what is this?
A person.
A person. We shouldn't treat a person like an object or a piece of food.
Yeah, you shouldn't label anybody.
No.
Because sometimes I feel like I walk around with a label on the front of my head, fat, because people told me I was fat a lot.
I'm sorry. So we don't want to be defined by our shortcomings. So we need to remember that we treat everyone as a person first. So when someone doesn't feel valued, when a person with a disability doesn't feel valued, it can lead to a lot of things that kind of culminate or snowball into worse effects. So they can feel lonely, isolated, unsafe. They may have low self-esteem. They may do less well in school. They may be violent. And all these things might lead them into criminal activity, and they might become criminals later on in life. But we can make a difference, and we can start changing that path for them by treating them kindly. So when you don't value others, when you decide that a person with a disability is less than you, or that you are better than a person with a disability, you become ignorant of the reality of the situation. Just because a person has a disability doesn't mean you're better than them. There are a lot of people with disabilities who are geniuses, like Stephen Hawking. There are people who make beautiful music, like Stevie Wonder. So if you ignore that, you become ignorant of reality. You become self-centered and all about yourself. You forget how important it is to have lots of different people in your community. And the worst of all is that you're actually becoming a bully by thinking that way and talking about others in that way. So here are 6 things that you can do. We're going to go through each one of them and talk about them in a little bit more detail. So the first one is to learn more about disabilities. This means to educate yourself. This is the first step. You can also go to your library here at school, or you can go to the public library and get some books about disabilities. You can learn about famous people with disabilities. I mentioned Stephen Hawking and Stevie Wonder. There's also individuals like Temple Grandin, Helen Keller, Tom Cruise, Michael J. Fox, Franklin Roosevelt, a former president, Stevie Wonder, and Harriet Tubman. So those are some people you can learn about. You can make an appointment with me, or you can talk to your teacher or your parent if you want to learn more as well. next thing you could do is make friends with a person with a disability. You can talk to your teachers and school counselors about our school's program called Abilibuddies. We have a program where you can become a buddy of someone with a disability. And you can do lots of things like learn about them, and they can learn about you, and you'll have lots of rewards from that experience because, like I said, people with disabilities might know more than you about certain things. It's important just to get to know people and make friends, because when someone feels like they have friends, their life is better. You could watch a movie. Here's a list of movies. Your teacher has this list. All these movies are available in our library. You can report bullying. This is really important. Bullying of a person with or without a disability is never okay. So if you see it happening and you don't feel like that bully's going to listen to you, or you don't feel safe talking to that bully, you can come tell a teacher or another adult, or you can come talk to me. I have my door always open, and you're always welcome to come in and talk to me. The fifth thing is standing up for others. It's really important to remember that you have a voice, and that if you hear someone talking negatively, you can make a difference by speaking your mind. And you can also build people up by saying nice things. So here are some things you can say to build someone up. I'll let you guys read those. Here are some things you can say when you hear someone saying something about someone else that you don't like. So what I'd like to do now is to call up 2 volunteers, and we're going to role play these 2 things. Yes, come on up. All right, so first, who's going to be the person with a disability?
I am.
Okay, what disability are you going to have?
I'm hard of hearing,
Okay.
but I can hear with a hearing aid sometimes.
Okay, so you have a hearing impairment, so you wear hearing aids. So what I'd like you to do is, as a friend, say something to your friend who is hard of hearing that might build him up. It doesn't have to do with his disability, just something that might make him feel good.
I like the way you write. I can't write as good as you. You have very good language.
Great, awesome. So now let's pretend that you hear me say something about your friend when he's not around. You could go ahead and sit down, thank you. Oh my gosh. That David, he can't even hear. It's like I keep telling him something and he can't ever hear what I have to say. He's so dumb.
It makes me sad when you say things like that about other people. Because he really is a nice person. He makes a lot of people laugh.
All right. Great, thank you, you guys. So finally, let's remember we need to check our attitude. People with disabilities are not their disability. Like we said, they don't have a sticker that says disabled on their forehead. We need to remember that by how we talk about them. We use person-first language. So we don't say, an autistic second grader. We say a second grader with autism. Or Manny has cerebral palsy. Or my grandmother has Alzheimer's. We always talk about the person first, because they are what matters, not their disability. Don't assume things about people. Be positive, be kind, and question stereotypes that you might have in your mind. Some common stereotypes that people have about persons with disabilities are disabled people can't do anything. Disabled people don't work. Disabled people are dangerous. All of these statements are not true. So when people with disabilities feel valued, it improves their lives and our lives. They feel a sense of acceptance and belonging. They will become better friends, more social. They'll do better in school. And it creates a community of harmony, kindness, and understanding. So in conclusion, I just want you guys to walk out of here and remember, when you see a person with a disability, don't see their disability, because they are so much more than that. And you can be the change to make things better for them and our community by treating them with respect and kindness. So this person here in this wheelchair, you might think a lot of things about him at first, but the reality is he's not dumb. In fact, he's a friend, a student, an athlete, a collector, an advocate, a taxpayer, a voter, a husband, a hobbyist, a leader. He does so much more than what you might expect when you first look at him. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. 15 and a half minutes. You think